Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 9, Episode 117. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for tuning in this Friday, Steelers Nation. Dave, how we doing over there?
I'm doing fine over here in Vegas, and today, exactly 10 weeks from today, the Steelers will open up their preseason at Heinz Field against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So it's already starting to feel. I'm already getting a little bit excited about that. You hear Tunch and Wolf give their wrap up of OTA practices on Thursday. There was a lot of hyperbullying going on in there, I think, but it was enough to get you kind of a little bit excited there. And I think just before we got on, 8 weeks from. I guess 8 weeks from today would be the Steelers' first training camp practice, more than likely. The team has yet to release their training camp schedule, but that might come out even sometime while we're doing this podcast today, or maybe sometime on Monday there. So week 2 of OTAs are now in the books, and we got a lot to talk about today. We didn't have as much new stuff to talk about, obviously, on Tuesday, and thank you, Jesus, that it seems like most of the guys are still fairly healthy right now.
And knock on wood, because I'm sure you have 1,000 Steeler fans just saying you jinxed them, Dave. But so far, so good on the health front. The biggest news, I guess, to start with here, Dave, is just not one that comes as a surprise to you or I, and I think we both tried to talk to some fans that seemed concerned over this, that there was no reason to be concerned. But Justin Layne signs his rookie deal. Now the entire 2019 Steelers draft class, all 9 picks, have been signed to their rookie contracts. So Layne, the last to get it done, just probably some small hang-up in some of the language. Who knows how this stuff goes. The agent busy with other clients. But Layne's done, and they're all in the books.
Yeah, all in the books, and way ahead of last year's schedule, too, because it was right before like the 26th or the 24th of July last year that it took to get Terrell Edmunds signed. I think if you go back the year before that with who was it? TJ Watt, took a little bit longer time there. And people got to keep in mind, a lot of where these guys get drafted at makes a difference. And normally, the Steelers pick around that, 22, 20 through 26 spot. And there's a lot of things that can be haggled with when it comes to that spot in the first round there, as far as total amount, of contract guaranteed and offset language and stuff along those lines. The thing that made it easier for the Steelers this time around was that Devin Bush was drafted top 10, and there's no wiggle room when it comes to being drafted up that high. Now people will say, well, what took so long with Justin Layne? And like you indicated, I mean, obviously we don't know for sure, but one would think, Justin Layne's draft spot is right around that cutoff mark too, where there's some, how much of maybe that contract's guaranteed, because that's kind of the tail end of guarantees and offsets and along those lines with players there. So I was confident. In fact, I think we both had somebody hit us up on Twitter yesterday saying, what's going on here? Is there any reason to be concerned? I think we both responded back that no reason to be concerned any day now. And about an hour after that happened, they announced Justin Layne signing there. So the good news is all that signed, sealed, and delivered, and we don't have to answer any more questions about draft picks signing contracts until this time next year.
Absolutely. Yep. So good to get it done, though, and just, have that, pen to paper and all set in stone heading into training camp. I think the most unique aspect about that now is once his contract finally hits, and, we already have the rough framework and estimation of what those numbers are going to be. But the Steelers entered today with 1.14 $1 million in salary cap space. And Justin Layne, when you look at his signing bonus, broken down by 4 years, it's a little, I think, under $300,000 there. So the Steelers are going to be under, barring anything happening
before that contract hits, sometime next week, they're going to have less than $1 million in salary cap space available to them.
In Omar Khan, we trust to massage that gap.
Absolutely, and it will. I mean, look, they're either going to do a restructure, they're going to cut some people at some point, but this is a team that probably is going to want to go into the regular season with around $5 million or so in additional cap space to work with there. So obviously some meat on that bone. Some players on this roster obviously aren't going to make it. There might be an extension or two along the way that frees up some money, and then obviously maybe a restructure get done at some point as well too. So it will, as I always like to say, all of this will come out in the wash, and there's no reason to really worry about it.
So you said they're going to be about 800,000.
Roughly 800,000 under the cap, but assuming nothing happens between now and the time that that contract hits, which will probably be Monday or Tuesday.
Is already Burns' $800,000 training camp bonus included in that figure, or is that going to take?
Yeah, I believe it's included in there.
Okay, so I didn't know that was going to take them down to zero theoretically or not. I still don't know if I'm giving Artie Burns $800K to come visit training camp. I'm pushing that back.
Well, you got to. I mean, you got to make you got to. Maybe you can talk him into pushing it back like Boswell. It's funny. They treated that Boswell news of the bonus being pushed back like new news this week, and we've known about that since March. I suppose. I mean, you could go to Artie and say, let's push that $800,000 signing bonus back to the same date as Boswell's, which, by the way, Boswell's, I think Joel Corey told me, it's like the 1st or 2nd of September. It's that cut down day. It's the cut down day, which is a week out from the start of the regular season there. So, I mean, I suppose you could go to Artie and say, let's push this thing back. And if he says no, well, we're going to cut you. Well, Like we said in an earlier conversation, I'm not so sure if I'm Artie, I just don't tell him go ahead and cut me, But
well, I'm the Steelers, I might be okay with that. I don't know if I'm paying $800K for a guy that's my number 6 corner.
Do you remember the last time a Steelers first round draft pick did not make it all the way through his rookie contract?
Is this one of those where Dave knows the answer and I gotta grasp it, or do you not know the answer?
Yeah, I do know the answer here.
First round pick didn't make it. Jarvis made it through. I mean, through the 4 years. Obviously not the 5th year option, but I know that's not what you're asking. Man, I'm just trying to think of some of the first round busts. Obviously like Jarvis and Artie are the recent two, but I'm trying to think like beyond that. Mendenhall made it through, I'm assuming. Right?
Mendenhall made it through, right.
I don't even know. I mean, I could take you like a Jermaine Stevens, but I feel like that's too far back.
Well, remember, let's see, Santonio Holmes only made it through 4 years before he was traded. But I mean, I guess you're going along the lines of being cut. Obviously, Santonio Holmes was not cut. He was traded, and he was traded just ahead of his 5th and final year, right? He was facing.
Yeah, I don't think that counts.
Okay, obviously Roethlisberger not cut. Polamalu, Kendall Simmons, he played.
He made it. He played till 2008.
Yeah, he made it easily there. Obviously Casey made it. Plaxico, he played out all of his years, I think, before he was traded. Let's see, he played out 5 years and then was traded. Wasn't he traded that off season? No, he was allowed to walk free agency. That's right.
Yeah. He made it through those.
He made it through there. And Troy Edwards. Troy Edwards was traded away, right?
Was he traded? What did he go to Minnesota?
St. Louis Rams.
St. Louis. Okay. So would that be? Who was the last one that was just like cut? Do we know the last one that was just flat out? Because, I mean, I don't think Artie. I mean, I guess Artie could be traded. There's some speculation about that.
I guess Jermaine Stevens. What was Jermaine Stevens traded, or was I'm trying to remember if he was traded?
No, he was cut. No, he was just straight up cut. Remember after he ran the 40, the conditioning test, he couldn't do it, and they just cut him right after that.
That was 1998, 99, right?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Let's see.
So that might be the last outright cut.
infamous, let's see, known for the Steelers fan, the incident occurred. First stage, visibly out of shape. He appeared to be 20 pounds over his listed weight. Failed to compete the conditioning test, then barely walked through the remaining one's hour. Was so disgusted by this embarrassing display that he cut Stevens hours later. So that would probably be the last one, right? That was all
right. Well, I guess it's better than I thought it'd be.
The one that was actually cut there, and that was obviously, go back to, that was 98.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
right around there, late 90s. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it'd be rare, but I mean, Colbert's that's not going to be a factor in the front office. They're not going to say, well, we haven't cut a first round pick for his rookie deal. And
no, you're not using that. I mean, you're using whether or not you think he can help your football team this year.
Right, and paying $800K
and you don't
for
think he can.
I mean, if I could bring the camp for free, I mean that's fine. But I'm not paying $800K for. I mean, he's your number 6 corner. Am I wrong when I say that? I know you seem to disagree a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think he has the possibility of at least opening up the season. A lot higher than that.
Well, I mean, I guess in the sense of I frame it of there are 5 guys who are definitely going to make it ahead of Artie Burns. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, Nelson, Hayden, obviously Hilton. You would think. You would think Sutton.
Yeah.
Sutton.
Layne.
Who?
Layne. Justin
Layne. That's 5. So yeah.
I mean, that puts you as the 6. Now in depth chart, things may change. Obviously, roles aren't going to flow like that. But in terms of guys who are going to make the roster ahead of him, it's definitely 5. So again, at best, when I say Artie Burns is number 6 corner, I mean there's 5 guys definitely making the roster ahead of him.
And I know you're opposite than this, but I would be more shocked if he's cut than if he's not cut. Coming down to 53, but
I think I flip it.
Look, I mean, I don't have any posters up here. I mean, I was one of the ones against drafting Artie right out of the chute, where they got him. I mean, I mean, this to me it was a second round corner, a top 50 player at best. Drafted in the first round there. So, I mean, there was definitely some too many questions I thought about him right from the get-go. But with all that said, I don't think $800,000 to me is just a drop in the bucket if he shows you anything this offseason.
I mean, for a team that has $800,000 in cap space, I feel like it's not necessarily a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have a lot more than $800,000 in cap space, but.
I don't know, just $800,000 for a number 6 corner, number 6 player of anybody. I mean, it's just.
Boy, you done thrown that kid out with the bathwater 6 weeks ago.
So fast. I mean, hey, listen, this guy always has really good camps, and that's the problem with Artie Burns is that every summer you sit there and say maybe this guy's figured it out because this dude has had always really strong, impressive training camps. He's really been the only guy that could take on Antonio Brown. That was 2 years ago, but it just never materializes. And am I going to pay $800,000 for that? I mean, or am I going to be a little smarter?
Now, obviously, if you could deal him away and get a 6th-round pick or something like that, you should really think about doing that.
Good luck.
And maybe there is a team out there. There's been kind of rumblings about the Eagles and all like that. I don't know how much I believe that, but I mean, look, it's definitely a rent-a-player situation because his contract's up. After this season here, so is he worth even a 6th-rounder? We'll see. I mean, if the Steelers got an offer like that, they should seriously, consider it. That's for sure. Yeah,
I mean, I guess if Justin Gilbert can get traded, funny enough coming to Pittsburgh, then maybe Artie can be traded. But I think maybe a 7th-round pick is all you're going to get for him at best, and that's going to take an injury in a desperate team.
All right, the Artie Burns portion of the podcast. All right, I don't know. We went down that hole real quick, but
yeah, I took you there. Let's stick with the secondary, then let's switch over to Sean Davis, who apparently has some sort of minor injury. I'm not even sure exactly what the injury is, but we do know that it's minor. So he's been held out of most of OTAs. He spoke to the media recently, saying all the right things, saying that he professing he wants to stay in Pittsburgh, but did note that there's yet to be any contract talks between him and the team.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm not overly worried about his health, and I think he even said in a recent interview that he's expecting to be back for week or be on the field for the first time, week 3 of OTAs. We'll keep our fingers crossed there. This is a guy that's only missed one game in his NFL career due to injury, and that was the week 17 game. The regular season finale last year against the Bengals, where quadricep kept him out. And really, I think only other time he showed up on the injury report as questionable was like week 4 or so of the 2017 season, and he played through that injury. So I'm not worried about him from a health standpoint there. Obviously, you'd like to get him on the field sooner rather than later. At least he's not switching positions for the first time this offseason here. And the other news to kind of go along with that was him saying that he's yet to have him and his agent, his agent obviously now is Drew Rosenhaus, have yet to have contract negotiations with the Steelers concerning an extension. Where we're at right now in the offseason, and I wrote this in my post yesterday, I don't think we can draw any hard conclusions from that just yet, because, I mean, let's face it, there's probably going to be about 3 or 4 guys that really, maybe contract extension talks don't start until the team reports to training camp. And as I just mentioned anyway, the team doesn't have any cap space to work with right now. Anyway, not that would prevent you from laying the groundwork with some contract talks there. But, Davis is one of those guys that, you probably wouldn't want to bet your house either way on which way this thing might turn out. As I wrote in my post on Thursday on SteelersDepot.com, he is a guy that's probably going to, at the minimum, Alex, want, I don't know, $6.5 to $7.5 million a year in average yearly new money there. And that would put him in the top, right at the top 15 highest paid safeties in the league. Now, is that going to be too rich for the Steelers' blood? Possibly. The franchise tag is going to this year was what I write, right, $10 or $11 million this year, and it's going to go up to what, $12-13 million, I think, projected next offseason. Obviously, he will be an unrestricted free agent next offseason if you don't get a deal done with him by the start of this regular season here. So what are you doing with him? Are you indeed trying to sign him to a, let's say a 3-year or 4-year extension worth, $6.5 to $7.5 million, and going from there, or are you going to let him play out this season and pretty much say sayonara, because you just can't. I just can't see him flapping, even a transition tag on him if they don't get him signed.
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to tag him. I agree with your premise that just because there hasn't been contract talks yet doesn't mean that there won't be. There's going to be this big, 6-week lull after OTAs and minicamp breaks before training camp. Usually when that stuff can get done, and these contract talks can materialize fairly quickly. But if I can get him really cheap, I can get him under that $6.5 million, maybe some sort of reduced rate for an extension.
Good. Would you? Good luck. Would you? If you're Sean Davis, are you taking less than $6.5 million?
Well, I mean, that's always a debate. You could get the deal done now for maybe a little less money, or you could bet on yourself and hope to play well and hope the market kind of shoots up and try to cash in after the season. So, maybe if I can go in for $5.5 to $6 million before camp, get him a little under what I think the market value is going to reflect a year from now, maybe I do that. But, I generally speaking, I don't have the compelling interest to sign Sean Davis long term the way that I do, say, Javon Hargrave. If I had to order the list, I would have Hargrave way above Sean Davis. So if I can get him for a really good rate, yeah, maybe I'll do it. But otherwise, I kind of want to see how year 2 at free safety goes for him.
So you're telling me $7 million is too high? Does he deserve to be a top 15 paid safety in the NFL this offseason?
I mean, obviously, I'm sure most people would say no, and that's understandable. But you understand how the market works. You got to pay for a starting safety. That's going to be your guy. So
you got the cops over there, or what?
Yeah, sorry. It's just been noises this whole week, man, with the tornadoes.
What kind of siren is that?
Fire whistle. The fire place is like 10 minutes away. It just goes off all the time. So yeah, I apologize for that. So
you can hear. How far away are you from the fire department?
like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Yeah, it's super loud for. I don't even know why they need that anymore. Who needs the fire whistle anymore? Is it like 1840? I'm sorry. With Davis, yeah, I mean, maybe inherently, you think, no, he's not worth that much, but you're going to have to pay, a fair market value because, it's the going rate for a starting safety in the NFL. But it's a big year for him. Obviously, you want to see the transition year two and hope that he pulls down a couple more interceptions.
What do you view as the going rate for him though? I just told you that 6.5 to 7 million is what will put him in a top 15. To me, if I can't get that if I'm him and I can't at least get top 15 safety money, I'm not signing the deal. So I mean, if you have, I guess what I'm getting at then is if you had to place a bet right now, are they going to sign Sean Davis long term later on this offseason?
I agree, it could go either way, but I'll say no if they don't get a deal done.
Yeah, I would have to hedge that. I mean, geez, and Mike Hilton too. You got a lot of guys that you think that you might want to get done, and obviously not all of them are going to get done, right? I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, Hilton is going to be restricted next year, so you have team control over him.
Right, you have the control there. Hargrave, you should be able to get done easy.
Yeah, that's top of my list is Hargrave.
You would think. Where does Hayden rank in there? I mean, technically, because of the money and really because of really there not being really any huge cap savings to be gained in doing so. I mean, you could technically wait on Joe Hayden, but you would think at some point they would probably want to get Joe Hayden done. So, Hayden and Hargrave and who else? That's pretty much probably going to be about it, right?
Yeah, those would be the top two. I don't know what Hargrave's going rate's going to be. What's his average yearly value projected? Is it going to be like 7 million? I honestly don't know what that number is because it's kind of a weird spot with a 3-4 nose tackle that's a pass rusher. How is the team going to define him? How's the agency going to define him and put a price tag on him?
Yeah, I think it's more along the lines of kind of Hilton. We talked about 3 to 4 million there.
You think that few for Hargrave?
Yeah, because he just doesn't play. That's
not Hargrave's. That's Hargrave's to say. It's not my fault. You guys aren't playing anymore.
But I mean, you're not going to pay a guy much more than that. I mean, you got you got Daniel McCullers' average yearly value at 1.3 right now. I mean, 3-4 defensive tackles just don't make the money. I mean, you got Eddie Goldman, I think, and then everybody else when it comes to 3-4 defensive tackles. I mean, it goes, I think, Eddie Goldman at they sure paid that guy a lot of money, didn't they? Mm-hmm. He is making, I liked Eddie Goldman coming out, too. I really did. His average yearly, his annual contract value is $10.5 million. And after him, it goes down to Deron Payne at $3.6 million. I mean, that's how big of the drop-off is.
Yeah, but I mean, Hargrave's, it's hard to lump him in as that just traditional 3-4 nose tackle, though, because he's definitely not that. I mean, he's got more sacks, I think, than Eddie Goldman. Eddie Goldman's got 11.5 career sacks. So, I mean, that's the argument that's going to be made is, should we pay – because he functions kind of like a 4-3 defensive tackle, almost in one sense. Hargrave does. So, it's hard for Hargrave to say, yeah, give me $3 million. If I'm Hargrave and I'm getting offered $3 million per year, I'm going to say I'm going to take my chances and try to hit the market because someone's going to pay me, even if it's in a different scheme, a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, look, but even so, you can control him. I mean, you can control him too as probably a 3-4. Now, obviously, I don't think they differentiate 3-4 and 4-3 when it comes to the franchise tag and all like that. So, if you're Hargrave, you could hold out on it and say, look, force them to tag me at a defensive tackle number,
Mm-hmm. And if the team wants to do that, then they're recognizing that I'm worth, a good amount of money per year. So give me that money long term. I'm just saying, I think it'd be like $5 to $6 million on.
Well, Hargrave. I mean, $5 million will put him, make him the second highest paid 3-4 defensive tackle in the league.
Yeah, I mean, how would you rank him as in terms of 3-4 defensive nose tackles in football? Is he top 5?
And 3-4, yeah. But I mean, how many snaps does he play a year for you?
Sure, but again, yeah, Harder's gonna say that's not my fault. You guys don't play anymore, and if one injury to Hayward or to it, I'm playing a lot more. So
I'm
that's
not.
gonna be his
I
side of
don't
the
think
argument.
I'm paying him anything more than $5 million.
He's super
Per
valuable,
season.
though. I mean, to have a guy like that, to have
A,
that kind of
a
mold.
$5 million salary would put him, I think, top 15 in regular 4-3 defensive tackles.
Listen, all I'm saying is I don't want to lose Javon Hargrave because it's hard to find guys like Javon Hargrave that have that body type, that strength, and that quickness in hand use. I mean, it's a rare blend, and I don't want to lose that.
Yeah, I think they got a chance to get it done. I think they have a chance to get it done at, what are you saying? Around 8, 9? I mean, that's.
No, I just said like 5 to 6.
I mean, I think 5 would get it done with him, and that might be. That might end up being a number because, like I said, $5 million would put him. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right around top 15 in just regular 4-3 defensive tackles.
Mm-hmm.
So and I mean, if you look at just interior defensive linemen alone, now $5 million would put him. If you're combining all interior defensive linemen, that'd put him probably around 30th in the league, 25th,
Yeah.
30th in the league.
And that's how I think they're going to define him because we know schemes have blurred so much, it's hard to be like, well, Hargrave's only a 3-4 nose tackle, so he's going to lose his value. I mean, really teams lump it as edge guys, off-ball linebackers, and interior defensive linemen. It's become a different, the term associated with the position than just 3-4 nose tackle.
Leonard Williams has an average yearly value of $4.6 million right now.
That's still off his rookie contract, though, right?
With the Jets there, and I believe he still is. Hold on.
Did he do an extension?
And they technically have him labeled as he's on his 5th-year option this year.
He's making how much on his 5th-year option?
4 No, that's the average yearly value of his contract right now. But he's on his 5th-year option this year.
Yeah.
And that 5th-year option is what drove it way up at $14.2 million.
Mm-hmm. I'm just saying Hargrave is 100% worth it. I mean, he's only going to get better, and I don't want to lose him. He's too valuable. That's just my stand.
So rank them in the likelihood to get done. Hargrave, Hilton, Hayden, and Sean Davis.
Well, I would probably have Hargrave at the top of my list, but I feel like they want to get Hayden done, so I'm gonna have Hayden at number 1. I'll put Hargrave 2. I'll say Davis 3 and Hilton 4. But it's all, I mean, 3 Davis and Hilton could get done. I don't want to pretend like they can't just because I have them 3 and 4.
Will all 4 get none?
No, somebody's getting something. When was the last time they went a year without doing an extension?
No, I said, will all 4 get done, though? All 4.
Oh, will all 4 get done? No, I don't think all 4 will get done.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, people probably tired about us talking about money now.
Let's go to who replaced Sean Davis during OTAs this week. And I know it's funny, we just had that discussion about, it seemed like Jordan Dangerfield's been the backup free safety, and not that that's ideal, but that's how it's gone. But a new face emerged, and I don't know if that's because I don't know if Dangerfield missed more than one practice graduating from Townsend or whatever the situation there was. But anyway, point is Kameron Kelly, futures contract AAF player, taking reps as first team free safety.
Absolutely, and I said it might be one of those younger players. Not so much maybe Jordan Dangerfield. I didn't think it would end up being Kameron Kelly, but I mean he is a versatile player. A guy that played obviously coming out of where did he come out of? San Diego State, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You played corner there, then played. I think he started off, or was it, which way did it work? He started off playing free safety, then played corner his last year. Is that right?
Yep, he played safety his first 3 years. They had graduation depth issues at corner. Remember Demonte Casey ended up graduating, I think. So Kelly shifted to corner, just like Sean Davis did his final year.
And then when he hit, he did actually play some free safety, I think, with the Cowboys last year, I think, and then I think there were reports of he was actually having a pretty decent camp, or at least that was the beat writers' take and guys that cover it's take on that. I don't remember seeing that he made any splash plays during the preseason, the 4 preseason games, though. I haven't gone back and looked extensively at his tape from last year with the Cowboys during the preseason, but the long and short of it was he got cut right ahead of the start of the season, and I don't think he even landed on anybody's practice squad or anything throughout last season there. You fast forward to the AAF this year. Obviously, when he got signed on with the Fleet, they started him off as a wide receiver, and then they had a few injuries there, had to shift him back over to the defensive side of football. And in that one game, I think it was the Week 5 game. It's sad that I can remember what week numbers already from AAF games there. He had the multiple interception game, was the AAF Player of the Week, and that really quickly shaped his future there. The Steelers signed him after the AAF went down the tubes there, and here we are. So this isn't to me. An overly twitchy guy, but I mean a guy that has played multiple positions there, so that does give him a little bit of a leg to stand on there. You've done probably a deeper breakdowns on him than I have. Where are you on Kelly?
Yeah, I like him. I think there's some potential there. I wrote in my futures report of him back in early May before we knew he was running first team. I said picture Sean Davis. I picture a less athletic version of Sean Davis. That's basically Kameron Kelly, both kind of in profile and then, the path that they've taken, playing safety, then corner, kind of getting shuffled around. But I do think Kelly has good ball skills. That may separate him from Davis a bit and kind of be the interesting factor. Obviously, the receiver background is important. I watched him in college. He's able to high point the football, locate it. Remember, I talked to him at the Senior Bowl whenever he came out, and a good dude that, had some really thoughtful answers. So, and the thing I'm really happy about with Kelly is that when the Steelers signed him, they called him a corner. And on the team roster page, I kind of listed him as a DB, and I was really hoping he would move back to safety because I think that's his most natural spot. I think he's probably a little too slow, a little too stiff-hipped to try to stick a corner. I know he played corner in the AAF, so I'm really happy because I think free safety is going to be his best home.
I do as well, too. But he is a guy that can play all over the place for you, and, versatility means a lot to the Steelers, so we'll have to watch that moving forward with him. And obviously, with a guy like him, he's going to have to shine on special teams.
Mm-hmm. And that's how he got his foot in the door in college. He's a guy that had to work his way up the ladder. I remember in my futures report, I wrote that his freshman year, he played basically all special teams and blocked a punt to help beat UNLV. So he's done it before, so that's not going to be foreign to him, but certainly going to be a huge runway for him to try to pick up a roster spot.
Do you like his chances of where are you on the safeties right now? Obviously, you got Edmonds and Sean Davis. How many? They're probably only going to keep 4, though, right? You would think.
Yeah, unless some guys really surprise. So you have Edmonds, Davis, Marcus Allen. Those are 3. We talked about Jordan Dangerfield, the value that he brings. But then really it's pretty open. We know that depth is not strong here. There's a lot of unknown guys with Kelly and Askew Henry and P.J. Locke and some guys that might get some hype. But certainly a team that's starving for somebody to show up and make some plays in the secondary. And so I think there's spots open for really any of those names.
Would you consider Kelly to be the leader in the clubhouse right now? It is super early. I mean, it's way super early on this. But leader in the clubhouse for the number 4 spot?
Yeah, it's got a little flavor of the month thing, so I don't want to get too carried away just about him getting that look there. It may just because they're putting him there over Askew Henry and Locke, because really Askew Henry and Locke are strong safeties to me. I don't really consider them free safeties, and just because Kelly's played a little more football and a little more experience, I mean, that could be a factor, I think, with the team a little bit longer as well. But yeah, I mean, he's got as good a shot as anybody that we just mentioned.
All right, that was a little bit of news. We'll have to see if the hype surrounding Kelly continues on through, the rest of the OTAs and obviously on into mandatory minicamp and into regular training camp.
Some more OTA talk. Sutton Smith, who we mentioned last week, was working out kind of dual position, fullback and linebacker. Continues to do that, which isn't anything too notable, but just to reiterate that it wasn't just a one-day kind of thing. And I think it's certainly very likely at this point that we're going to see Sutton Smith play some fullback in camp in the preseason.
This is a guy. Look, for a backup player, a guy that you probably are not going to see play a lot of assuming he makes the 53. You would think that the snaps on both offense and defense, you would think and hope would be extremely limited. But all that said, it certainly appears as though they're trying their best to carve out a roster spot for him. Right now. Now, make no mistake about it. He's going to have to be a four-phase special teams guy. We've said that from the get-go, right from the moment they drafted him. Do you in any way think this is hurting his development in any way, shape, or form, having him go both ways at this time of the offseason?
Well, I mean, I guess a little bit. I mean, if you're just losing some snaps at outside linebacker, then yeah, I mean, you can't say that it's not hurting. Though, if you're losing out on 5 or 10 reps that you could have at linebacker, but is it for the greater good of him and the team? If he's not going to get those snaps and if he's not going to be that versatile, then it's going to hurt his chances to make the 53. I think the answer to that would be yes. So it's just kind of it could go either way. There's pros and cons to it both. But again, as I've said, I think that playing these different positions and having that versatility means that he's going to have a much better chance to make the 53-man roster. So ultimately, I think it's the greater good for him. Otherwise, he may be cut and lose out on some of those reps.
And we don't know how many actual reps he's losing or not. You would think it's a lot of drill-associated stuff. I mean, like yesterday was the running backs on linebackers in that small box area, kind of two-hand touch where the instruction was for the linebackers to try to eat up as much of grass as possible and not come to explain the term come to balance for the folks there.
Basically just being able to break down for your tackle and have good tackling posture where you're going to break down shoulders over toes and just being able to, drive through the tackle. But in that situation, they don't want you to come to balance because you're going to stop your feet and you're going to, not eat up that grass and the guy's going to get away from you in space.
And that was the big thing that I think Mike Tomlin, you could hear some of the coaches stressing during that drill is don't come to balance there. And you saw Benny Snell, I think, made a nice move on one of those. Even I think Sutton Smith along the sideline on one of those as a fullback made a nice move. And I mean, he was quickly getting in one line and then going over to the other line there. So I don't see him missing reps there. Obviously, we don't know how they're breaking down the drills in OTAs. Otherwise, I guess long and short, what I'm trying to say is I at this point right now, I don't see where him going both ways would stunt his development in any way. And if anything, I thought this was a great answer on his part that he gave to the media. Look, it's helped sharpen his athleticism and all by getting this much overall work at all these different positions there. And we all know the biggest thing for these young kids when they get into training camp here is the conditioning level. They think they might be conditioned now, but some of these guys will get into camp by about day 3, and that's when this old soft tissue injuries start hitting them. Am I right?
Yep.
So the more conditioned these guys can be coming out of OTAs and mandatory minicamp, maybe as a result from playing multiple positions, to me, I think that might end up being a positive for him. And once again, I'm more excited to see him during preseason. He's going to be a guy that assuming he stays healthy between now and the start of preseason, we're going to be writing more and more and talking about just from the aspect of wanting to see all the hats that he can wear and how much he can get done while wearing those hats. Not from the aspect of, boy, this is a guy we really look forward to seeing during the regular season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're going to see a lot of 42 this preseason. And he's a guy that, and the other benefit of playing a little bit of fullback is just getting that perspective of the offense. So whenever you do play linebacker, you probably have a little better understanding of blocking schemes and, run fits and all that because you're playing the other side of the football the way that Justin Layne may have a slight advantage because he's played, receiver before, so he kind of knows what the receiver wants to do. So that'll be helpful too. But again, it's all I think for the greater good for him to maximize his chances of making the 53. And I don't think he's going to get to this level, but remember the Broncos had Spencer Larson a couple years ago who played maybe the first player in several decades to start a game at linebacker and fullback. So we've kind of seen those two-way players before. Again, I'm not saying Sutton Smith is going to start at fullback, but we've seen some teams kind of try to get a two-way player going before. And of course, Spencer Larson, just like Sutton Smith, was really a four-phase special teams kind of guy. So again, the more you can do to help the team, the more value you're going to have, the better your chances are making the 53.
The Steelers' Week 1 preseason game against the Buccaneers. Does Sutton Smith play combined offense, defense, and special team snaps more than 60?
Oh, wow. It's going to be up there. I think it's going to be close. I'd have to look at exactly how many snaps.
Realistically, in preseason game number 1, he could play like 20 to 25 defensive snaps probably, right?
Yeah, because the starters are probably going to be held out. Yeah, I think he could play 50 to 60 snaps in that Week 1 game, sure.
I mean, yeah, in offense, maybe you can get him, 13, 14 snaps maybe on offense in that game. So we're already at 38. And special teams, 12 to 14, depending on how many times you have to do. So, yeah, I mean, maybe 50 is a better over and under number for him on that.
Yeah, he's going to play a lot, though. He's going to be one of probably the top 5 guys in terms of total snaps played this whole preseason. I'm pretty confident in that.
He could be a guy that logs league-wide the most total snaps played, all 3 phases. Very well could be.
He'll be up there for sure.
All right, what else do we have?
You
think it's too? Look, we said right out of the shoot, this guy's going to have a little bit of tough time.
Sure.
I mean, are you kind of surprised a little bit the path that it's taken, or
I mean, I didn't expect it, I didn't anticipate it, but it makes a lot of sense. Like I said, if you have that background, the more things you can do. I mean, 6th-round pick, you got a ton of draft picks, you got a crowded linebacker room. Whatever you could do extra to try to just give you that slight edge, I mean, that's a good thing. So I know people kind of freak out about it, but again, I think it's only going to help his chances of making the 53. And again, his value is going to come on special teams, so you can call him whatever you want. If he plays well on special teams, he's got a chance to make it. If he doesn't, it doesn't matter what he's doing at fullback or at outside linebacker.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's stick with the linebackers, though, with Ola Adeniyi. I believe he had an interception yesterday. Is that correct, Dave? Picked off the pass?
To hear him talk after yesterday's practice there, he picked off Joshua Dobbs, and he did it via something he didn't do a lot of at Toledo, and that was, of course, dropping into coverage. He claims that on that play in question, he was man coverage on Deontay Spencer, which I don't want to see a lot of that. But he did drop, and Dobbs evidently thrown the football, and asked afterwards if he obviously stated that he didn't do a lot of that at Toledo, and that's not surprising, being as he was really a 4-3 defensive end there. He talked about he'd rather have a sack than an INT. He talked about working on his pass rush arsenal this offseason, working on dropping a little bit into coverage there, and make no mistake about it, it was good to hear him talk, because it's just something we don't get the chance to hear him talk too much, especially after he had a good preseason last year, and then unfortunately had to start the regular season on IR due, I think, to the hamstring injury there. It took until early December for him to get activated to the 53-man roster. He obviously missed a lot of practice time during that downtime, and then obviously didn't play much of any snaps once activated to the 53-man roster. And now you fast forward to where we are now. This is a guy you want to talk about Week 1 preseason, Alex. I mean, this is a guy you would think that's going to play a lot of snaps at outside linebacker, and you would expect a lot out of him.
Yeah, one of those guys making jump year 1 to year 2. Obviously, you talk about guys like James Washington, who certainly will likely have more prominent roles than Ola Adeniyi. But, just in the same way you want to see Washington take that step and hope that he does, you have that same feeling with Ola Adeniyi. And he should do it. And this is a guy that had a really good preseason last year. He knows, how to win as a pass rusher. He knows his game. He's a strength guy. He's a leverage guy. He's a rip guy. Again, kind of similar to James Harrison. Obviously, we're not calling Ola Adeniyi the next James Harrison, but they have a similar skill set and mindset as pass rushers. But the question with Adeniyi has always been everything else. I mean, I think pretty immediately you knew and you felt he could be a really talented pass rusher. But can he drop into coverage? Can he play special teams? those are going to be the questions he has to answer, in addition to, of course, still getting pressure on the quarterback.
And we saw last preseason with him, too, him not do a bad job at all at setting the edge. What game was it? Was it
Titans.
the Eagles or the Titans?
Yeah.
Right. He moved some furniture, you know?
Yeah, he's a good linebacker, but he's got to be able to go backwards a little bit. I know they don't drop that much. It's not a huge concern, but he's got to be able to do it. Then special teams is going to be the real question mark for him.
Absolutely, and hopefully his athletic. He still looks like a pretty thick guy though overall.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So obviously Chicolo has more value already. When it comes to special teams aspect of it, but. I mean, you really would, to me, I think Adeniyi more than anything has to make himself uncuttable as a pass rusher more than anything during the preseason. If he can do that, and look, we've seen him do that. I mean, he's going to go up probably against a little bit stronger competition this time around, but we saw him use some nice moves and some counters in his brief time last preseason. And, if he has built on that kind of part of his game this offseason, like I said, once we get into the preseason with him, he is a guy that we're going to be in that week 1 5 players to watch post that I like to do, or somebody's going to end up writing. He's going to be slap dab in the middle of it.
Yeah, it'll be a big season for him, and I really hope he does well, because the outside linebacker depth, they need it, because obviously, Bud's had his injury issues. You never know who's going to go down when you got 2 guys expected to play close to 1,000 snaps. You got to have a good backup plan. Yes, Chicolo's there, and right now Chicolo is in number 3. But if Adeniyi can prove himself, even if it means that, let's say that Adeniyi doesn't beat out Chick for the number 3 spot, which I know would kind of be a disappointment to both of us, but let's assume that he's in number 4 and becomes inactive on game day because his special teams value isn't there. But then if an injury happens, you can call him up and play him in that defensive role right away. I mean, I'll take it. Just get guys who can get after the quarterback to have that strong depth. So. That's the thing with him. As you said, his calling card is going to be what he does on defense, setting the edge, rushing the passer, but he's still got to show kind of a more well-rounded game to really try to secure a spot.
Yeah, he is a guy we're putting up on a pedestal and have really since the end of last preseason there. And, a lot will be expected of him as we move into the summer here.
I don't think I'm putting him on a pedestal. I think I'm putting a spotlight on him.
Call it what you will, pedestal, spotlight.
Well, a little different.
A guy that a lot is expected out of him this summer.
Sure. You definitely want to see a jump. And again, to go back to my pet peeve, I mean, if Adeniyi doesn't make it, then you have undrafted problems again. I mean, that's kind of the one guy from the undrafted class last year. I mean, it's Patrick Morris too, but Adeniyi is kind of the one name that you say, hopefully he can stick and you can finally have one hit for a UDFA.
I mean, you don't have much. I mean, Tuzar, Skipper, who else behind him? Obviously, Sutton Smith. I mean,
JT Jones, kind of interesting, AAF guy.
Yeah, he is. You go back, you look at his sacks.
Had a good preseason in Atlanta last year.
Maybe he's a guy. And once again, he's gonna have to blister it on special teams, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's funny. Skipper and Adeniyi, 2 Toledo guys, probably playing maybe opposite each other this year. It'd be kind of funny.
Mac action.
Yeah, they love the Maction for sure. And let's stick with Maction, I guess, since we're talking about it. Deontay Johnson. I kind of chalked this up to some sort of OTA fodder, but I also believe it's probably a good nugget of truth to it. Deontay Johnson telling the media the game's starting to slow down for him. I think that's common. Getting the rookie minicamp, your first practice with the vets, your head's kind of spinning, you're moving around a little bit, but sounds like Johnson's kind of picking things up.
Yeah, we're in that max hyperbole area of OTAs, I think, right now. And look, saying that it's slowing down for you is better than saying it's not slowing down for you right now. So, we did hear, Ramon Foster had some positive things to say about him in a sit down recently with Mike Pursuta. Ramon's pretty good at overall the last several years at kind of identifying talent this time of year. Had some good things to say about Deontay Johnson. I think tight end Vance McDonald said, look, this kid can fly as well here too. But with all that said, and you look at the overall makeup right now of the Steelers wide receiver depth chart, just temper your expectations here. The big thing with Deontay Johnson that I want to happen right now is him to stay healthy, him continue to learn the playbook, and then just make it through training camp and show us some sort of spark Like show us the things that you did in college at various points during the preseason.
Agreed. But like I said before, I think what he did in college, facing some press coverage, at times being the guy, playing multiple positions, I think is only going to help accelerate and ease the transition to the NFL. It's still going to be difficult, but as I said before, I think it's going to be a much easier transition than St. James, Washington, even though Johnson is coming from the quote-unquote smaller school.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is another guy that right out of shoot, week 1 preseason, that guy should get a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. And return game, too. He's going to have some value there. I mean, he could do kicks and punts. I think definitely punts. He may do kicks as well. He's a little small, but, I mean, Switzer isn't a big guy either. But, yeah, I mean, he's got to show his value in a lot of different ways. Maybe even a little bit of special teams in terms of coverage. I mean, he may do a little bit of that. We'll see.
Just stay healthy right now. That's the biggest thing with him.
Since you mentioned Ramon Foster, kind of talked about some of the guys that impressed him. I had an article that went up earlier Friday on Steelers Depot talking about 2 offensive linemen, undrafted guys that have caught Ramon Foster's attention. They are Fred Johnson, the guard tackle from Florida, and Garrett Brumfield, the guard from LSU. We mentioned kind of Johnson's right out of the chute when they announced the UDFA classes, maybe the top guy to watch out for in terms of talent. He got the second biggest signing bonus, $15,000 behind cornerback Alexander Myers. So, I think the offensive line depth, you run through this thing, I mean, even after trading away Marcus Gilbert, the depth here is really, really strong.
Brumfield, I think, more of a left guard, right, at LSU, and Johnson was more of a right guard.
Yeah, I think you have. Johnson was definitely on the right side, played a little bit of right tackle too. I think Brumfield was more left guard, but obviously, and we'll get to this with Derwin Gray talk, they're going to cross-train these guys pretty good.
Yeah, so, I mean, those are Johnson was one of your highest paid undrafted free agents and kind of a guy you guys identified right out of the chute as being someone potentially to watch. Definitely looks to, at worst right now, be on track for practice squad, but I mean, way early for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had Fred Johnson on my initial 53. I think he's just got interesting size. I mean, he was a big guard. He played mostly guard with the Gators, and the dude's like 6'6", 6'7", with 34-inch arms, so he could play tackle too. But again, the versatility is important. Brumfield's a much smaller, squattier body, but a really nasty run blocker, kind of hampered by a knee injury last year. But I mean, and I wrote the post this morning. I think you could make cases for 13 different offensive linemen to make the 53-man roster. And that obviously includes the starters, but that's pretty wild.
And tell us about what Derwin Gray's doing.
He's doing everything. He's playing 4 positions already. After playing really just left tackle with the Terps, he's played left tackle, right tackle, in both guard spots. So, again, that just goes to the team cross-training these guys just in the way that, obviously Sutton Smith getting moved to fullback creates the headlines because it's a whole different position than outside linebacker. But all these guys are asked to do multiple things. And Derwin Gray, yes, the move from tackle to guard isn't nearly as eye-catching as Sutton Smith, but it's the same principle. So when you hear Sutton Smith getting moved around, you shouldn't really freak out about it the way that you wouldn't freak out hearing Derwin Gray playing guard and tackle. But it's whatever you to do more things to maximize your value. And if you're going to be a backup, you got to be able to play more than one position. I mean, that's pretty standard for most teams, but definitely true in Pittsburgh. So the more hats you can wear, the better.
I think they let it slip one time in a picture on Steelers.com from OTAs. And I think at one time we saw left tackle Gerald Hawkins, and I think Brumfield at left guard. I couldn't see who the center was in that group, but more than likely it may have been Morris with that group there, right?
I don't remember the picture. I didn't see it, but that sounds right.
And David DeCastro still missing time due to the birth of his second child. B.J. Finney obviously getting the first team reps, it sounds like, there at right guard. And it sounds like the right tackle pecking order has been Filer and then like Hawkins and Chukwuma. Core 4, and then occasionally some banner in there as well, and then obviously probably I think Hawkins probably getting, and probably a core 4 too for that matter, although we don't know for sure, probably getting some sort of work on that left side as well.
Yeah, I mean, Filer's really a right side only kind of guy, but a core 4 and Hawkins can certainly play both. Yeah, I mean, Filer I expect to kind of be, when training camp opens up, on day one. I think Fowler's going to be the right tackle with the first team, take the first reps. But I think
out of respect too, and plus he did not. You hate to characterize the guy as well. He didn't suck last year, but I mean,
he played 5. Yeah, started 10 games last year. He played well.
Yeah, he played well. I mean, overall, and that's why I say I don't want to characterize it that way. I mean, he played well enough that he deserves going into camp to be the starting right tackle. Now, you obviously would hope that he gets pushed very, very hard by one of your draft picks in there, core 4.
Yeah, I mean that's competition brings the best out of the whole group, and I think there's really good competition both in that starting spot. Obviously, Finney has his spot locked up pretty good, but beyond that, for 8th, 9th, offensive lineman spots, I mean, there's some really good battles that are going to be had there.
And you would think a core 4 is going to be your initial backup left tackle. You would hope.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because let's assume if you were to win the job, then who becomes the backup left tackle? You hate to do an in-game if there's an in-game injury to Villanueva. You hate to move multiple guys to fill one spot. But we'll cross that bridge if and when we come to it kind of camp.
All right, you've done this long enough now. Where are you on the hyperbole of this year's preseason offensive line group? Training camp offensive line group.
I mean, I don't know if there's any hyperbole about it. I mean, are we talking starters or backups or the whole group?
I'm talking the whole group, top to bottom. Obviously, you're going to be high on the starters.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most important part. But I think the depth is strong. You're going to have a really good battle between, the 3-4 names you can throw out there at right tackle. Finney's obviously a top backup, and then you got a lot of interesting young guys who are going to be fighting and clawing and scratching to carve out a roster spot, and that's going to help again. The competition cream rises to the top. So I think it's a really strong group, and I'm excited to watch them work. And again, I've always been a big Sean Surratt fan, and I think fans will hopefully, people to give kind of the respect that he's probably owed for the job he's done for several years now.
Mason Rudolph and Joshua Dobbs got, Rudolph talked to the media this past. I'm a fan of Rudolph's. I am.
I hear you swooning over there.
But he's got some moxie to him.
Got to have that for a quarterback.
And look, we've said this several times. To me, at least, it's going to be very disappointing if he does not come out of preseason as the number 2 quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yep, but as we talked about on Tuesday's show, he's certainly got to earn it, and it's just about being consistent, making a profit on every down, taking care of the football. I think he turned the football over too much last year, so natural stuff for a rookie, but you're looking for him to probably take better care of the football in 2019.
To go over a few other news and notes and highlights maybe of what has happened, Tunch and Wolf gushed about Deontay Spencer, especially following. Yeah, he evidently went yard twice yesterday. So, and I'm not talking Josh Bell yard, but he that speed is on display, and you would expect it to be.
Yeah, I would expect in that environment, a veteran guy, a guy that's played professional football before up in the CFL in shorts and shells with his athleticism, I would expect him to play well. Once the pads come on and things get more intense and physical, that's going to be the big test for him. But yeah, another guy that's smaller, shiftier, but has big playability and can return kicks and punts. So, it's an interesting skill set there.
All right, what else do we have? We talked about Adeniyi. What other young guys are we missing here?
I think we got through most of the young guys. I mean, one procedural move for a young guy with 5th-round pick, Zach Gentry, switching from 83, which he was wearing at a rookie minicamp. Now he's wearing number 81. That was apparently kind of semi-requested or implied or asked of, I'm not sure how you want to phrase it, by Ben Roethlisberger, just out of respect for Heath Miller, which hopefully doesn't become a story. I don't think it's going to become a story, but it's out there that Ben kind of helped nudge Gentry to switch from 83 to 84.
It's that ownership mentality.
Can we not say those things?
I mean, I get it, but I don't get it. I mean, Kobe Hamilton's worn 83 already. Is this?
I guess because it's a tight end.
I put that in my write-up yesterday about maybe it's probably because he's tight. Maybe it's a subtle nudge at the rookie that you really haven't done anything to even look at that number. Maybe that. I just wish. Why didn't they just not give him 83 to start with?
Yeah, right.
Just don't give him 83 to start with, and we don't even get in this situation here, and all. But hopefully that thing doesn't blow up into Ben and having ownership mentality here.
Nah, I don't think it will. But now everyone will think that Zach Gentry's still Jesse James. There's going to be one fan at camp he's going to catch a pass, and someone's going to be like Jesse, and I'm going to be angry about it.
Well, if anything, I mean, he looks the part, right? I mean, one was 6'7" and one is 6'8", and I tell you, they were doing that interview with Adeniyi yesterday. That's on Steelers.com. You can see in the background Gentry holding his media scrum as well too, and he's not hard to spot.
Yeah, easy guy to spot. How about someone else made a good comment to this? Sutton Smith and Vance McDonald look like long lost brothers. They look pretty similar.
You know who I wouldn't have gone that way, but you know what I would have gone was he looks like a mini TJ Watt a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit of Watt. Yeah, I could see. Yeah, maybe McDonald and Sutton Smith are just Watt brothers that didn't make the cut.
I mean, if you look at him kind of in the face and all like that, I mean, to me they he looks more like. I was just thinking about this morning, by the way. Sutton Smith sort of looks like a mini Watt. Speaking of Watt, he talked to the media as well too. Boy, you want to talk about a guy that another guy that's primed to have another big year or build on what he's done so far. I mean, it sounds like too he's really taken hold of this leadership role in his third season. That's always good to see and hear about there. He's healthy right now. Let's hope that continues with him. He talked about how a lot more comfortable now. He's got a full year underneath his belt, working on that left side, working on obviously more counters and things along those lines. Him and Bud Dupree are pushing each other. Had some positive things to say about Bud Dupree and that first step of his, yada yada. And then Bud Dupree, all he could talk about really, and this is not getting on him, but I don't want to hear about the sacks that you almost had.
Yeah, no team pays for hypothetical sacks. You got to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you could go league wide, and everybody almost, if we adjust your almost sacks, we got to adjust everybody else's almost sacks too. So don't tell me about the labor pains; just show me the baby.
Yep.
And I think one of the things that it was a good kind of line of questioning there, and really it's something that probably needs to be focused on a little bit more. They did a good job of strip sacking some quarterbacks last year. They just didn't get the football.
Yeah, Watt had I think five or six forced fumbles. I mean, he had a ton of them. They probably recovered one or two of them. I'd have to look at the numbers, but they didn't. They missed on some chances.
To go back and see how we talk about those dropped interceptions. And obviously, and Watt referenced this during his talk with the media, the shape of the football and how that thing bounces, I guess you could chalk it up to being unlucky a lot last year, but they sure were unlucky in all areas when it came to the turnover department last year. So you would obviously like to see, not only sacks this year, but get that, knock that football out, like you did last year, and hopefully the rest of the defense can come up with the football this year. So I think that's one thing that stuck out when Watt talked to the media, and then the thing that Bud Dupree is, look, I don't care about how many sacks you almost had. Now the thing is though, and one thing that we don't talk enough about was total amount of pressures. Pressure has worth. Okay,
sure.
It's not something that is a stat in the National Football League. Obviously, it's probably not too far from being with the likes of Pro Football Focus and stats. Extended stats like that, but he did have his share of pressures last year. The thing is those things have to equate to something more than just a pressure.
Yeah, I think if I remember my defensive charting correctly, he was right up there with TJ Watt in terms of total pressures. But obviously Watt had 13 sacks and Bud had, 5.5, 6 of them? So, I mean, that's a difference. There's like with Tuitt. I mean, Tuitt had a ton of pressures last year. I just wrote the article the other day about kind of his one step to take, and I kind of feel like a broken record, except I believe I've written about this in the past. You just got to be able to finish plays. And yeah, it's a little bit of bad luck, and yeah, the quarterback sometimes gets the ball away, nothing you can do about it. But if you're just looking, if Bud can increase his sacks by even 2 or 3, and Tuitt can do the same, I mean, you're going to get, and you can pick off a couple more passes. I mean, this defense will be where it needs to be.
Wasn't 8.5 the number that we put as kind of on the ceiling on Bud last year?
That sounds about right. I don't remember. Or the year before.
Yeah, when we've been constantly saying, man, if Bud could at least get to that 8.5 sack number, I mean, geez, if him and something that hasn't happened since 2010 with James Harrison and Lamar Woodley, man, if those two guys could both hit the double-digit number.
I'll be over the moon if they do that.
Jeez,
but, I mean, just give me 8 sacks first.
I mean, obviously, Watt should be expected to hit at least 10,
sure.
Right?
Yeah, I think he could even touch 15. I think his progression in the last 6 weeks of last season were really impressive. Really good hand use.
And I guess technically it doesn't matter how you get there, but you certainly would like to see those two guys and those two guys alone combined for 22.
Yeah, that'd be nice. And then you got Hayward and Tuitt probably doing, 20?
I mean, geez, can you get between your
20?
three defensive linemen, can you get 15 out of those guys? You would think, right?
I mean, 15? I think you do more than 15.
Well, I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is, can you get 30 from your front?
Wait, who? Define that. The front of Hayward, Tuitt, and Hargrave?
I'm talking between those 5 players, between Tuitt, Hayward, Hargrave, Watt, and Dupree. Can you get 30?
I'm hoping to get more than 30. 30 feels light. They had 52 last year. I mean, you got 22 from the rest of the group coming.
You would at least think you could get 30. So what number do they? What's the target for the front? 35, and we already went through that projection the other day that said, what was it, 42 or 43?
Yeah. I don't know the exact number. I mean, at least whatever they had last year.
Your inside linebackers are going to have a handful of them.
Hopefully Hilton
probably three or four from your defensive backs, hopefully, in there. You back up outside linebacker. I mean, you would hope Chick and Adeniyi or whoever is in there, total up about 3 of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a cap on sacks. You're probably not going to go above, say, 55, just a numbers game. But I'm looking at how many the front had last year. I mean, it was let me do the quick math here. I think it was 38.5. I'm looking at the numbers correctly. Watt had 13, Hayward 8, Hargrave 6.5, Bud and Tuitt 5.5. Yeah, so I mean 35 is my floor if I want to have an ideal number for that front. Okay,
and I mean you like to see the more likely to get the strip sacks when you get them off the edge too.
Mm-hmm. And that's partially because of the way the rules have been too, because it is so hard to hit a quarterback these days without drawing a penalty that a lot of teams are now coaching, just go after the football. Because if you hit the quarterback, you're going to hit the helmet, you're going to drive him into the ground, and some dumb penalty is going to be called. So let's attack that football. So yeah, Watt, I'm looking at the number. Watt had 6 forced fumbles last year. How many fumble recoveries does this defense have? The number might be kind of weird. Yeah, and I got offense in here, so I can't give you a good number right now. But yeah, not enough is right. So they got to pick off more passes. I mean, someone asked me the other day, what's ceiling for this defense? And really, I mean, if they do generally what they did last year, but they just create a couple more turnovers, they just hold on to the football a couple more times on some interceptions. I mean, again, this defense will be where it needs to be. It doesn't have to carry this team. It just got to be able to make plays in situational football to help close out games.
I think that, I mean, look. 15 turnovers is not going to get it. I mean, not going to get it. That number's got to be 25.
Yeah.
I think that. I mean, we are not going to circle that number, folks. If this team don't hit 25, they're not going to have a chance at winning the Super Bowl. I don't think because and obviously not make the playoffs. The defense has got to have the biggest improvement this year because you would expect to some degree this offense is going to take a step backwards, okay? So you got to have – I'm tired of – I know I've harped on it a lot, but, I mean, you cannot expect this offense to keep going 75 yards every drive. They're going to have to be some short fields mixed in here for this offense. And, the defense also is going to have to stop some of these drives from being scored on them by getting turnovers probably in the Steelers' end of the field. Yeah.
I mean, that'd be an interesting study. What are the fewest amount of takeaways created by a Super Bowl winning defense over the last since 2000? what's the minimum number you probably want?
It won't be hard. It won't be hard to come up with that number. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no, it'll be easier to do. I'm just curious what the number will be.
If you had to guess, what would be the average over the last, let's say, 20 years? 20 is a fair number, right? 20 years?
Or since 2000, whatever, just one and the same. I'm not sure what the number would be. I mean, I think about 25 sounds right, but I'd have to do the legwork on it. But I'd be curious to know.
And I'm sure there's an outlier or two in there.
Sure.
But probably not many of them there. I mean, look, you talk about every off season or every postseason when we get to that aspect about, man, you got, which defense in here is the one that's going to be able to stand up to the test and provide you that one and maybe even 2 games to help overcome the offense. Look, you need to have a good offense. You need to have a quarterback with at least the adjusted yards per passing attempt number of, let's say, 7 or greater. Okay, you have to have that in order to compete for a Super Bowl, I think. Beyond that, you have to have a defense that we think with a number of 6.5 or less. And then once you get into the playoffs, you're going to have that defense win at least one game for you. Look, I predicted the Patriots, at the start of the playoffs last year, though, to be that team, and they were, and they got it in the actual Super Bowl there.
Yeah, just looking up the numbers from the last couple of years. New England last year had 28 takeaways, won the Super Bowl. The year before was Philly, they had 31. The year before was New England, they had 23. So, I mean, just off the top from the last 3 years, you got
that's like about
25
about 25. Right around it, yeah.
Yeah, maybe a little above that. So, I mean, I'll be able to do that study for Monday or something. But, it'll at least frame it of where you want this defense to come in at the minimum at. I think that'll be a good way to look at it.
That's why when we go back to those projection numbers that we went over in that Tuesday podcast there, if the Steelers hit those numbers defensively, it's not going to be good enough, I don't think. I mean, look, you spent some draft, you spent a lot of early round draft picks on this defense, right?
Yeah, I mean, what is it, 9 years now? 7 years? What's the number? Since DeCastro. DeCastro was last offensive first round pick.
I mean, how many of your top 3 selections in each of the last, let's say 3 or 4 drafts have been defensive players? You go back to Hargrave and Davis and
Artie.
And Artie. I mean, you've got enough draft picks in them. You better start getting a return on them.
Yeah, and 15 takeaways. I mean, I just can't get over that. 29.
No, you go back and you pull that number up to them 8 interceptions last year, and you go back through the annals of Steelers history there. You're going to go a long way before you find that low of interceptions in a single season.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, and again, they had the opportunities. It's not like, they just didn't have any good chances. I mean, they had plenty of chances, and they just could not capitalize to save their lives.
You would think it's just a weird anomaly, right?
I hope, but the last 2 years, I mean, they weren't great the year before either. They were better, but they still weren't great. So, that's why you bring in Steven Nelson. That's why you signed him to that big deal, and you draft Justin Layne and hope, the young guys like Edmonds and Davis take next steps.
I mean, the offense can score this year, but I don't think they should be expected to be anywhere near the kind of offense they've been the last, obviously not last year. And hopefully you don't have to have it. Like we said, you don't need Ben Roethlisberger. If Ben Roethlisberger has to throw for 5,000 yards, something's gone wrong. Something's terribly wrong.
I said it before. I mean, the 2 numbers that will define this season, and I guess with the second stat you can choose one or the other, but red zone offense percentage. I mean, they were 75% last year, and that was amazing. So that's going to be the big defining number.
They're not going to hit that this year.
Probably not. I mean, even if they had the same players, it probably wouldn't do it just because that number's so hard to obtain. But you want to be top 5, I think, in red zone offense efficiency. And then the other one's going to be, it's either going to be, you can categorize it as takeaways or turnover differential. I mean, I get turnover differential is more important, but if you have good takeaways, your other numbers are probably going to be good. But those are the 2 numbers. I mean, just look at it that way. Red zone efficiency and takeaways for me. If you could tell me those 2 numbers today, I could tell you what kind of season the Steelers have.
And I'll take it a step further. I'll see your turnover differential and add you and raise you a TOX stat. With the explosive plays in there. Because quite honestly, are you expecting the explosive play number to go down? for the Steelers offense this year of 20 yards or more?
I mean, it's reasonable not having an AB. I mean, it may not go down by a lot, probably a little bit.
So if that number goes down by 10, you damn sure better have the extra 10 in the turnovers. And I'd rather have the 10 in the turnovers, to be honest with you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what would you rather have? 10 more? What would you rather have? 10 more explosive plays at 20 yards or more, or 10 more turnovers?
Yeah, give me the 10 turnovers.
Me too.
I'm thinking I'm either stopping teams from scoring or I'm creating really good scoring chances for my own offense. I mean, and that goes back.
Me too.
And that goes back to the stat that you had, that Steelers had, the second worst starting field position of any team last year. I think Atlanta was the only team that was worse. I mean, that's indicative of a poor return game, which is certainly an issue, and the lack of turnovers that did not create short fields for the offense. And I mean, you could tell me that number, and I could tell you how good this season was, and then go from starting at their own, I think it was their own 26 last year, they could start at their own 29 as the overall stat. That indicates that they're getting some more juice in the return game, and that they're probably creating some more turnovers.
And I forget what the actual number was, but it's only like 11 drives, I think, started on the opposition side of the, opposition side of the field. And thank God.
Where did that rank? Do you know where that ranked? I assume it was low. I don't expect that to be the top 5 number.
The answer to that is no.
It's bad. Let me try to find that. I'm really curious about that.
You ask for a number, and I give you a no answer.
Well, I've come to expect that.
But yeah, I mean, it was very, very low. I mean, very, very low. I mean, now thank God you had the Bud Dupree pick 6. You had the Vince Williams pick 6. Mm-hmm. You had the L.J. Fort recovery. So here's how sad it is. I can recall all those.
Yeah,
that's how low they were. The sack and L.J. Fort against the Falcons recovering in the end zone, right? Was it Fort that got it and Chicolo that recovered it, or the other way around? I forget how it was, but yeah, I mean, fortunately, the turnovers that they did get throughout the season, a few of them were ended in the end zone there.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it here, and this is just a really quick work, so you might have the better stats than I do, but according to Pro Football Reference, they had 8 drives last year that started in opponent territory. And that was basically like 30th in the league, 29th in the league.
Yeah, I thought that number was 11 for some.
Yeah, I mean, you might be right. I just did the quickest search possible, and it can get a little wonky. But either way, it's bad. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, 8, 11 needs to be more. You'd like to see that number around. I mean, ideally, things have gone real well if it gets around 20, I think, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 20 would put him in the top 6 or 7 in football last year.
I mean, you don't have to be a rocket surgeon to know what this team needs to do this year. The defense needs to be better. The offense just needs to hold serve, not turn the flip. Like and the other thing that we said, Roethlisberger cannot throw 16 interceptions this year. And the only other thing that I don't think we've really hit on, and I know this was the big narrative last year. Oh, they got to run more. They got to run more. They don't necessarily have to run more, although they probably will run more this year. But it's not going to matter if they don't run better. Successful runs. Give me successful runs over high run, split run pass differential any day of the week. The thing last year is, we had James Conner do a lot of things that Le'Veon Bell didn't do, and that's produce explosive runs. But on the flip side, his run success percentage was not great. It was probably middle of the league there, and had his run success rate been better, there was probably another win to be had in there somewhere.
To go to Ben, I don't really care that he threw 16 picks last year, because his interception percentage was as low as it's been since 2014. Just because he threw
for 600
million passes. Yeah, so that's, I mean, naturally you're going to throw more picks when you throw the football that much, but for me it was to break that down even more, and I mentioned this on Tuesday's show, was the red zone interceptions, which were tops in football last year. I mean, he can throw 16 picks, and if he throws that many attempts again, that's fine, but if he can only throw maybe 2 or 3 red zone interceptions, hopefully less, then he'll be even better for it. So that's the number I'm looking for with Ben, is red zone turnovers, not turnovers in general.
And I think all 4 that were inside the 19 went to Antonio Brown last year.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe he got a lot of targets inside the 19 last year. So, and the one wasn't his fault. Remember that one I referenced on Tuesday against Atlanta where he threw that in the quadruple coverage. I mean, Not on AB. It's on Ben.
Do you realize, though, that of all, only 5. This is where you're going to miss AB, and it's a Captain Obvious there. Him and Juju tied for inside the 19 red zone receptions of 5 each last year. And you would, running back through your head, you would think, man, it sure seemed like AB had more than that, but he didn't. I mean, it was 5 for him, 5 for Juju. I think, believe it or not, Samuels had 3 red zone receptions. I think
that was it. Really, just 5?
5 for AB. Yeah, 5.
Even including like touchdowns, catches inside the red zone.
No, I'm talking 5 red zone touchdowns.
Oh, okay. I thought you said receptions. I'm sorry.
No. Okay. Red zone touchdown receptions.
Okay.
Inside
well, then 5 makes more sense.
And then now AB did have another one right at the 20-yard mark. But I mean, technically, if you want to say inside the red zone at 19 and on in. So if you want to include the 20, then it was 6 for him and then 5 for Juju and then I think 3 for Samuels. I forget how the breakdown went from there. But I mean, obviously, if he only had 5 red zone touchdowns last year inside the 20, well, then where did the other ones come from?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why Vance McDonald's could have a big role in the red zone. I had the stat the other day that showed, I think, through the first, 8 games that he played, that he had like 2 red zone targets, and over the last 8 games that he played, or 7 games that he played, he had like 8 or 9. I mean, so that, Vance McDonald's got to pick up the slack from what they're losing from AB.
And then, obviously, I wrote about this past week as well, too, about Dante Moncrief. Look, nobody in their right mind is expecting Dante Moncrief to have 100 receptions and 15 touchdowns and 1,300 or 1,500 yards this year. But can he catch 60, 70 balls? Maybe 70 might be pushing a little bit. But more importantly can he replace those AB red zone touchdowns of 5? And over his career, Moncrief has not been a bad red zone producer in that area there. So I think that's one of the things that you have to look at when it comes to Dante Moncrief and his ability to help fill some of those shoes left by AB, and that is inside the red zone there. If he can help give you back, if he can help give you those 5 to 8 red zone touchdowns there, receptions, that's a pretty big contribution in my eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I spoke to the red zone efficiency number being one of the 2 biggest stats I'd love to know this year. And I'm not saying they have to be at 75, 76% the way that they were last year, but they need to stay in the top 5. They can't go back to this Todd Haley era where they're like 11th or 12th or 17th, and you're like, that doesn't work with the talent that you have. I mean, this has to be a top 5 red zone offense in 2019.
And I think, and as I was alluding to there, when you look at how many of his talking about AB's total touchdowns, where only 5 of them came within the red zone, he obviously had 15 in total. So where did the other 10 come from? Outside the 19-yard line. And he had, obviously quite a few long ones there. So you're really missing, and like I said, once again, it's a Captain Obvious statement, you're missing the big play ability of AB. And he certainly helped you take a lot of fields from long to short. Now, Juju, to his credit, boy, he had a lot of big plays, in his first 2 years. And you obviously would hope that same percentage is there. But who is going to help replace those other big plays? And hopefully you don't need that many if you're working on considerably shorter fields than you were last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it all kind of works together. All right, so good discussion there, Dave, to kind of close out the show, because I know we're running a little over on time. Chris Boswell talked to the media too. I think he kind of ducked them for the first week, which is fine, whatever he wants to do, and then spoke to them these past couple days. Really didn't say a whole lot, but just kind of talked about how he's not going to blame injury. He's going to kind of keep staying the course, focusing on himself, and that's all saying the right things for a kicker.
Yeah, and look, at least it's out of the way now. I mean, is there any reason for Boswell to have to get in front of a media mob between now and the start of training camp? I mean, maybe you talk to him again once he gets to training camp, and if he's smart, he'll come out there day one and say, "What you guys got for me?" And then that'll be it after that. I mean, look, I mean, kickers are Kickers are funny animals, right? I mean,
yeah.
You even highlighted, I think, who was it, Paul Edinger a few years ago with, who was it, the Bears, and his kind of wacky, and you go back through the annals of time and place kickers and, kind of the weird things there. I mean, they're a different kind of animal there. So now you just, he's had his media session. You let him be. And I think there was a report yesterday that Sean Swisham was back at OTAs trying to work on him as well, too. So all you do is keep your fingers crossed there. And I would, however, try to put Boswell in his not that he doesn't have a high-pressure situation as it is now, because, he's playing for $3 million. He's playing for $3 million right now. As it is, but are you more looking to see what your other kicker can do, or what maybe Boswell can't do during the preseason?
No, I'm just looking for Boswell to see what he can and can't do. I'm looking at everything. I mean, I got to get the cleanest and fullest evaluation as I possibly can in the preseason. Did you see the study I did the other day on Boswell and asking the question, can he bounce back? Did you see that? And if so,
I mean, there's statistical evidence that shows that kickers can overcome that bad year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's basically the point. Not that it's a guarantee or anything. We've certainly seen kickers that have flamed out, and maybe that happens for Boswell. Hopefully not, but I'm not going to guarantee anything. But I think it did show that kickers that have had bad seasons, they are capable of bouncing back, and they can go on to have really long and good careers. Sebastian Janikowski, Neil Rackers, Ryan Longwell, to a lesser degree, maybe Mason Crosby. Greg Zuerlein had a bad year a couple of years ago. So, I mean, history says that it is possible for Boswell to bounce back.
You know what he needs? He needs to make sure the rose is in front, and that reference is going to go way over your head because you have not seen the movie Bull Durham yet.
Yeah, I have not seen it. So moving on. I got a lot of homework movie watching this summer.
Absolutely, your summer's almost over, by the way. I wonder how many people got. I wonder how many people got that reference. Email me if you got that reference of Boswell having to worry about the rose being in front. All right, let's see here. I guess we should try to get to some emails to close this thing out here on this Friday. Austin Hackett, hey, David, Alex, thanks for taking my question. Wanted to ask about Bud Dupree and why you guys feel he still hasn't developed a counter move to run it straight up the arc. Seems like he tries to spin sometimes, but he gets washed into the trash. Don't understand why he still can't convert speed to power. As TJ said this week, he has legs in the tree trunks and explodes off the line. Why can't he ever use those tools to move offensive tackles? Appreciate your work as always, guys. Austin. Look, I mean, you go back to his time in college at Kentucky. He never was. He was more he won with his get off more than anything else. And now a lot of times you're asked to run up the arc. Your job is to contain on the outside. Obviously, not every time. You're going to see sometimes. I think, in fact, in a few of the sacks that he had last year. His sacks came as a result of quarterbacks not being able to step up into the pocket because of interior pressure. I think I think it was the one against the Panthers that he had is a good testament of that. He is not a rip. Help me out. He's not a speed
to power guy.
Yeah, not a speed to power type guy. That's just he's been more of a finesse guy. And it's the age-old question. Yeah, why hasn't? I mean, it's a good question to ask about a lot of edge rushers over the years, not only with the Steelers but in the NFL. If you have, like Kevin Green said years ago, you can get away with having one move in the NFL, but that one move better be damn good and unstoppable, right? If not, then you better have a lot of okay moves and some good counters there. And the thing is that the whole, it's got to be a quick seed to do process. And I think one of the things that Adeniyi hit on late, and you had to really kind of listen to pick it out during his talk with the media there is all of your pass rushing moves are really initiated on what the tackle does.
Mm-hmm.
So. How much are you studying those tackles to see, right. It's got to come naturally without thinking about it. If you see the tackle look like he's starting to overset, You got to know how to work off of that. If you're seeing a tackle punch, overextend himself with a right-handed or left-handed punch, how are you going to react off of that? And that's one of the aspects of the game that I think Bud really struggles with is kind of the mental and actually, you hear all the time, does he have a plan? Does a pass rusher have a plan?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the toughest things with Bud Dupree is I don't think he has a plan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with a word that you said there. And you're right, coming out of college, he was kind of a one-note pass rusher, but you figured, okay, he's raw, he's got this great athletic skill set. Now we can teach him and refine him and just create that second move, that one counter they can always have in his back pocket when tackles want to, guess on the speed rush. But it hasn't developed. And why? That's a great question. I wish I had a better answer for you. The only thing I would say, and it's going to sound like a bit of a cop-out, is that because he has been fairly hurt throughout his career. He's played through a lot of injuries, but he's certainly been hurt. That maybe that stunted his growth because he's missed practice time or he's just been in the training room so much, just trying to focus on getting healthy enough to play that it's taken away some of his ability to really work on refining his game the way that we've seen TJ Watt refine his game quite a bit. That's going to sound like a bad excuse, but that's the best answer I can give you. And
even T.J. Watt, look, take your hat off and hand it to him so far what he's done, but he's still got a ways to go in the overall moves and counters department.
Yeah, but I thought
his overall quality sacks have not. They're not what you would think they would be, to me.
Yeah, but I think if you really look at how he finished last year, that's really I think the light kind of came on for him the back half of last year.
I mean, you really expect that. Look, to me, the ship has sailed on Bud 2 off seasons ago. To me, personally, we're talking about 8.5 sacks. If he could hit 8.5 sacks, I'm going to take clothes off and go running in the street. Kind of excitement. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, the guy's been to Chuck Smith, worked with Chuck Smith during the offseason, the last 2 or 3 of those. I mean, is somebody going to wave the magic wand and this all of a sudden happen? I mean, you would hope it would, but I mean, I'm not holding my breath. That's why I said, man, if he could hit 8.5 or 10 sacks, oh, Lord have mercy. And if Watt gets 13 or 14 on the other side, I mean, we're going to have a lot of fun this season, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, I think my thought for why the team kind of seems to be the most optimistic of any of us is because they just want to say if they can get a healthy Bud Dupree for one season, we'll have our really first time fair and clean and accurate evaluation on him as a player, and hopefully
you're paying him $9 million. I mean,
oh yeah.
Whew. Better see that 8.5 sacks this year.
Mm-hmm.
All right, from Jay Barbardi, cornerback rotation. Who do you suppose will be the backup nickel corner if Hilton misses time? Nelson is probably the best fit, but would they move him? Layne and Burns are strictly outside guys. Man, you would hope maybe Sutton can seize that role, right?
Yeah, I mean, it could be Sutton. I just don't like Sutton in the slot. I think he's best as an outside corner. So I think it would be partially dependent on how the progression of Justin Layne's going. If they're happy with where he's at, say by week 5, if Hilton goes down, then maybe you can move Nelson around. I think you're fine with moving Nelson around because he's probably going to play some slot just naturally when they shadow or move guys around. It's just going to happen from time to time, and obviously he did that his first 4 years in Kansas, or first 3 years, I should say, in Kansas City. But I mean, Sutton might be the day one guy, but I think depending on the progression of Layne, you could see Nelson kick inside down the road.
Yeah, you could. Early in the season, most definitely there's a possibility that happened. It'll be interesting for you to track during training camp, too, how much time a guy like Nelson does get in the slot, if any.
Yeah, I imagine in some twin sets he'll move around as corners often do. But I think primarily he's going to be on the outside in camp because although he's played that before, that's what he's going to start with in Pittsburgh, and you want to get comfortable in that spot and how the Steelers scheme things.
So, Jay Barbardi, to be determined. I think a lot of what Alex does during training camp will help us kind of maybe bring that picture into focus. Right, Alex?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree. Training camp's going to tell us a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, we try to take what's out there in OTAs and view it in certain kind of lenses, but I mean, it's so limited right now. It's still a lot of a big guessing game when it comes to a lot of this stuff here. From Andy Cribbs, real quick. Hey, guys, a lot of media outlets keep on suggesting that Mark Barron will be the hybrid safety, a.k.a. dimebacker. I know you guys think he'll strictly be inside linebacker, and I think Tomlin has said the same thing. Am I missing something? One other quick question. What one player are you most excited to watch during training camp preseason beside Bush? His would be Mason Rudolph. Look, I don't think I think you could see a combination of all these different linebackers at some point during the season. I think you could see instances where it's Barron and Williams. I think Barron and Bush. I think Bush and Williams in there in certain instances there. So, I just don't think you're going to see AKA Mark Barron full-time hybrid safety, a.k.a. dimebacker.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think the question was dimebacker. We know that Vince will. Well, all right, well, they're saying dimebacker not in terms of who the one inside linebacker is going to be on the field, because one of them will be, but like who's taking Burnett's role is basically what the question is. And I don't believe it's going to be Barron. I believe it's going to be Marcus Allen.
Okay.
Is that what you think? Or do you think Barron could play that Burnett role? Is basically what the question is, I think.
I think you could see I got to see more. I'm not on the Marcus Allen train like you are just yet. I got to see more of it.
I need to see more of it too. But as I said on Tuesday, when Tomlin talked about sub-package football after the draft, who was the first guy that he named? It was Marcus Allen.
Right, Marcus Allen. So that's what Andy's alluding to here. I think with talking about Tomlin, I still got to see it. I wouldn't bet my house on either way right now. I think, look, Mark Barron has played that role before, that kind of that money backer role, So
it's been a while. I don't not what he's done in his recent past. So it's hard to see him play that role because that's just not what he's done, and that's not what his skill set lends itself.
Here's the thing. I mean, they got to have more athletic. They got to have a better option than Burnett was last year. Plain and simple.
Yep.
And I'm not so sure Marcus Allen can be that guy, but we'll see.
Yep, agreed.
Okay, the other quick question: who are the guy that you're most exciting to watch in training camp preseason? I think Mason's a great choice because you expect him to win that. Like I said, and I've said it several times, you expect him to win that number 2, and a good preseason is what he's going to need to be able to do that. I think Olasunkanmi Adeniyi is a guy we've already talked quite a bit about as a guy that excited to watch during training camp and preseason. Who else on that defense? I think Kameron Kelly now has his hat thrown in the ring there. I think Eli Rogers. I think Eli Rogers is a guy that you think that should have a very strong preseason, right, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, Eli missing all preseason last year, so it'll be nice for him to kind of get back in the swing of things. My pick, though, for who I'm most excited, I'm excited to watch Mason Rudolph, but I know that ultimately it's really not going to impact the 2019 Steelers too much, generally speaking. So in terms of guys that are going to have that immediate impact, it's the X factor. It's James Washington. Give me Rudolph's teammate. I mean, if we can have a good camp from him, it's going to make you feel a little bit better about this offense moving forward post-AB.
And then I would agree with that. Then also going back to the guy we just talked about, Marcus Allen.
Yeah, that's a big one for sure.
A guy but look, we're going to have no shortage of guys to write about in that 5 guys to watch.
Might be more than 5 guys.
Might be 10.
10 guys.
10 guys to watch in this first preseason game, 10 weeks from actually today. Starting to get close here. Let's see. Dave and Alex, this from Chad Schmigdal, Navy Dock in San Diego. God bless you, Chad. Purely based off statistics, who has the better season? Juju versus AB or Connor versus Bell?
You take this one, Dave, because I got a train coming.
Boy, it's hard to go against AB. So I think AB statistically, and probably mainly because of the explosive play factor. I mean, it's hard to bet against AB. Even in with him going to Oakland, being in that new offense there. So statistically, I would have to say AB over Juju. Connor versus Bell is an interesting one here because you would think that it was going to be Bell because of the money and the amount of snaps that they're going to expect him to play, and because of Connor maybe not going to be see the field maybe as much as Bell. So, if you're just going off of let's boil this down to just fantasy points in PPR and fantasy points alone. I would expect AB to have slightly higher fantasy points than Juju, and I expect Bell to have slightly higher fantasy points than James Conner.
I agree on both, though I think the gap between Bell and Connor will be a little more than slightly. I think it'll be a pretty, Bell might be the second best back, and Connor might be 12th or something like that. I think AB and Juju, though, will be very, very close, just as they were last year.
And I don't think it's a bad thing for either one of those guys to finish behind the other one from a fantasy points statistical aspect. Once again, Ben's going to have to spread the ball around this year, and they're going to have to run the ball a little bit more successfully than they have in the past, and they probably have to do a better job of kind of preserving Connor a little bit this year as well too. So then you have the whole Juju probably facing a little bit more, no probably about it, going to be facing a lot more attention than he has in past years too. That's going to make it a little bit tougher on him and force Ben to probably go different areas there as well too. So the only way I think Juju and Connor overtake AB and Bell in the fantasy point column is if those other two have AB and Bell have some sort of injuries that keep them off the field.
Yep, fair enough.
I think that's got it there, Alex. I think we're running a little bit long anyway. Oh, Daniel Guthrie wants to write in. Appreciate you guys giving the Dayton region shout out during the Memorial Day tornadoes in their area. Lots of extensive damage and people without homes, water, etc. there right in the middle of Bengals and Browns fan. There's a stronghold of Steeler faithful there, and I know I'm not the only one listening. Thanks. Keep up the good work. Daniel, we hope everything's good in Dayton there for you, brother. So appreciate you chiming in. I hope everybody, there's been a lot of bad weather up that area there as well too. So I hope everybody stays safe. And until Tuesday, week 3 of actually get started on Monday. That'll be likely a day spent at Dave and Buster's for the Steelers with a team building exercise. But week 3 of OTA is getting underway next week. And if you you want to follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. If you want to follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit that donate button, upper right navigational bar. If you want a year-free version of SteelersDepot.com, ad-free, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button, upper right navigational bar. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.